What's good, YouTube? Welcome back to the Stock Hustle channel with your boy William. Today is Monday, September 27th, and the ticker you guys see on the chart is SAVA Science Incorporated. So, this is a company that, if you guys were in this in the early part of the year, had this beautiful run up, essentially down from the 30s, as you guys see, to the upper 140s. Again, this is a 1 year, 1 day chart, so every single candle represents a 1 day on the chart specifically. So if you guys were in this play, there was a lot of hype on StockTwits and on Twitter in the beginning of the year, and specifically to this play, because again, it did shoot up essentially from the 30s to the upper 100s, fell back down, consolidated over this long stretch of period, and then went on this beautiful tear from May essentially to the early part of July, middle part of July, where it capped off at 146 before it fell back down essentially to the 60s. Tried to fight back up to the 100s and then ultimately ended up in this channel from the 40, essentially from 44.10 all the way up to 62.04. So as of the 15th of September, I started getting alerts from unusual whales triggering for call options, which made me remember that they were going to have clinical trials starting for a specific drug. This is a pharmaceutical company. Essentially, they are creating a drug to cure or to treat Alzheimer's specifically. If we go in here, is a clinical stage of biotechnology company. The company is focused on developing the drug for the treatment of neurodegenerative diseases such as Alzheimer's disease. So as you see, they do have a website here. I've already taken the liberty of looking it up. They do have an investor section. They don't really have much of anything in here specifically for investors other than the name of the two drugs, SAVA DX and Simufilum. I can't pronounce that name, but I did go ahead and pull the video for you guys to check out. It is pretty interesting, so we're going to watch this real quick. It's less than a minute. So,
Simufilum is a promising new drug candidate for Alzheimer's disease. The drug targets a protein in the brain called filament A. In Alzheimer's disease, filament A takes on an altered shape, causing neuronal dysfunction, neurodegeneration, and neuroinflammation. Simufilum returns altered filament A back to its normal, healthy shape. In a randomized placebo-controlled clinical trial funded by NIH, Simufilum improved 11 biomarkers of disease pathology, neurodegeneration, and neuroinflammation. Simufilum is the only drug candidate to improve multiple biomarkers from distinct biological pathways in Alzheimer's disease patients. Patients treated with Simufilum also showed encouraging improvements in episodic memory and spatial working memory. These and other results suggest Simufilum may slow disease progression and improve thinking and memory in patients with Alzheimer's disease.
So as you guys can see, this drug is essentially being designed and created for the treatment of Alzheimer's. In the beginning of the year, there was a lot of hype around this drug being released. Now that it's gone through phase 1 and phase 2 trials, obviously people become way more bullish. I know that in end of quarter 3, beginning of quarter 4 is when they were going to start phase 3 trials. Phase 3 trials, if you've never been in a pharmaceutical play, essentially is right before they get or go to get their FDA approval, which is always a super bullish sign. Because again, if they do get that FDA approval, essentially buying in now, being that the stock is essentially at 68.53, you're on the front end of that potential run up. And as you guys have seen from this play, on the first run up it hit 117, on the second run up it hit 146, on the third it did peak out at 125. So being down here in the 60s, starting phase 3 trials, I see that as getting in early before the hype, because if they do land that phase 3 and secure that pre-approval from the FDA, this is going to be a rocket to Jupiter potentially, or further. Looking at some of the cities that they're in, you see Florida, Texas, Ohio, Nebraska, Arizona, here locally where I am, New Jersey, California, are a lot of the different sites that they are doing essentially clinical trials specifically, right, for this specific drug. So what made me super bullish on it? Well, when I started doing some digging, I did remember, again, as I mentioned, in quarter 3 or quarter 4, they would be starting phase 3 before going for approval. Looking at unusual whales as I always double check anything that I'm bullish about, because we did get some alerts specifically for SAVA. Today alone, we got a October 1st, 2021, $80 call. On the 24th, Unusual Whales alerted for October 1st, 2021 at the $66 call. Looks like we also got one on the 22nd of September for the $62 call. That's for October 8th. Those are both weeklies. And that's really when I started paying attention to it. It was around the 22nd. I think on the 15th we did also get another alert for the $42 call, but that was for September 17th. We're way past that at this point. The ones in play are essentially the beginning part of October, right? So looking at the breakdown, as you guys see, this is going to go by increments or premiums. So anyone buying or spending $1,000 or less, as you guys see. The expiration, October 8th, as I just did mention. The strikes that are specifically being targeted, the 60 and the 70 have a significant amount of money on them. Essentially, the 65 does too, but mainly it's going to be the 60 and the 70. For $5,000 premium or more, again, the expiration date on this one is going to be the November 19th. And as you guys do see, the puts are above the calls on this specific premium amount. And again, they are targeting that $75 strike. The one that interests me the most was not the 15,000. Again, similar scenario. November, you have here October 1st, October 8th. As you see, the puts are still above the calls on this specific expiration for this specific premium amount of 15,000 or less. The 60, the 69, the 70, and the 75 would be the highest targeted, right? Here we go. $30,000 premium or more. So the big whales, right? As we always like to go and hunt the big whales, right? See what they're doing. See October 1st, they are above the puts for that expiration. October 8th, same setup, calls above puts. And then the November 19th, 2021, you see calls are above puts as well. What strikes are they specifically targeting? You have the 49, the 60, the 75, and essentially the 95, right? So that's essentially the breakdown of the flow specifically for them. Let's go back into the live flow, and we'll now filter down to SAVA to show you guys exactly what it's doing. And we'll filter by premium just to give you guys just a good idea. Premium, because there have been some pretty large buys going into this stock. So as you guys see, 2.4 million on a $100 call. This was back in August. What's more recent? 2022, January 2022, $60 call, $2.1 million. November 19th, no, that's a put. Oh, a sold put. Here we go. $75 sold put, October 15th. As you see, they're mixed by premium, but as you see, the amounts are pretty significant. As you did see the breakdown, the highest tier, $30,000 premium or more, that's where the calls are above the puts. So, specifically, when you look at the options chain, we can take a quick peek. Looking at the October 15th, I would be a potential buyer somewhere around here. So at the $70 strike, as you guys do see, you're going to end up getting or paying for this specific call anywhere from $830 to $870 to get yourself a 0.55 delta. Again, as I've mentioned, 0.55 delta gives you also a 55% opportunity to be profitable in this play. At the 65, you're looking at a 0.64, and at the 60, you're looking at a 0.72. The 6.4 and the 0.72, those are probably the best odds when you're going into these call options that I would specifically say, especially when it's a biopharmaceutical company or stock or ticker. You always got to remember that those FDA approvals are contingent on a lot of things, and a lot of the news articles that are coming out about those trials are going to play heavily on this play. When you're looking at the average true range, as you guys do see down here, you have an average true range of $8.83. So what does that mean? Essentially what that means, for those of you that are not familiar with ATR, and again, I'll put the description of ATR from Investopedia down in the comments or the description of my video for any of you guys that are interested in researching that. What it's saying is that potentially SAVA has a range to swing $8.83 either to the upside or to the downside. But when you pair that with other indicators, it gives you a better understanding of what SAVA may end up doing, right? So specifically, you see this big candle here. This is today, right? We had traded 10.9 million shares just on today's date. You see that we are sitting on this nice support line, nice and even at 62.04. Now let's take a look at the indicators. The RSI is essentially sitting at 54, which is above neutral, heading towards the upside. And in the MACD, we are in a buying period, right? So to me, looking at this play, viewing the chart, and we can give you a trend breakdown if you guys prefer, just to make sure we sum this up nice and pretty. You see this downtrend here, and now we're starting this uptrend matching along with our buying period and our RSI being very bullish. I would say that this ATR to me would imply this is a potential swing to the upside of up to $8, which means that SAVA could potentially go from essentially $68 to $76 potentially. Again, you have to take it with a grain of salt. ATR, or average true range, is not going to tell you which way it'll swing. It's just giving you the amount of the potential swing, right? So when you include that into the price, looking at those calls, essentially if you went with, for example, this $65 call, you would be making $64 for every single dollar that's SAVA goes up. I did go ahead and map out an options calculator specifically for this strike, for this expiration, and I did go with that one specific contract, going from essentially anywhere from 69 where it's at today to the high that it's had in the previous past of 117. If potentially we hit essentially anywhere at $80, you're looking at essentially $595 in your pocket. Hitting 90, you'd be at $1,173. And again, I'm using the early part of September. Remember, this play does go all the way into October, so don't take what I give with exactors. Again, it's just an estimated total. I usually quote the first row or the second row just to give a good range. But again, there is theta decay that is applicable to options, so you always got to keep that in the back of your mind. This would be considered, in my opinion, a super high risk play because, again, of the pharmaceutical trial being contingent on whether this will either go to the moon in Jupiter or whether it will crash land somewhere in the middle of the ocean. If you wanted to even play this even further safe, you could potentially play out a January 2022 or a February or even a May, and this would be essentially considered a leap because you're giving yourself a significant amount of time. Obviously, when you're going out into these further expirations as a leap, the premium goes up higher, right? But that's when you see a lot of people usually try to YOLO on these extremely ridiculous high-end strikes. I would say a safe bet would be somewhere around this 100 strike or this 95, because again, you're going to earn 0.51 delta, as I mentioned to you guys before in multitude of videos. I like to stick to 0.50 delta or better, giving myself a 50% chance of being profitable at the least. But again, I think you guys get the points. This is SAVA, as I did mention. If you guys do have questions or comments about it, leave them down in the comments below. As always, guys, any like or subscriptions to the channel is 100% appreciated. I thank you all if you stuck through the end of the video, and I'll catch you guys in the next one.